Let's talk about Djokovic. Did you guys hear about this story? And do you like my little, this is not a joke? Get it? Anyway, so Djokovic was going to Australia to defend his title at the Australian Open. And he got a medical exemption, okay, and was able to go after this whole medical exemption. So he didn't have to get a vaccine. He was able to get a vaccine exemption to go and defend his title. Okay. Well, now suddenly this morning, one day later, I guess there was enough of a mob, enough of a woke mob to say that how dare they give him a medical exemption, a vaccine exemption, and we're revoking it. And now you're kicked out of the country. So now Novak Djokovic is being refused entry into the Australian Open. So right now he's being kept at an immigration office in Melbourne, at a Melbourne airport, after a 10-hour standoff. So he was filing this this appeal so that he could play in the tournament and defend his title with a medical exemption. And they agreed to it. So he flew there, ready to play, and now they're revoking it, pulling it off. And so, as the New York Times reporting, he was told he would need to leave the country after a 10-hour standoff with government officials at a Melbourne airport, where he was held in a room overnight over the validity of his visa and questions about the evidence supporting a medical exemption from a coronavirus vaccine. Now, this exemption was supposed to allow him to compete in the Australian Open, even though he's not been vaccinated. Okay. Now, if you know anything about Djokovic, you know that he suffered from all sorts of inflammation and issues over the years. And so he has not been vaccinated because, well, he thought it would medically compromise him. So he decided not to be vaccinated as a result of that. He's incredibly healthy, but he went off gluten a number of years ago. I've been following sort of his health journey for a number of years. This isn't new. And so that was his medical exemption. I'm a tennis player down on a tennis court, 15 meters from any other human being, playing a game by myself on the other side of a net and a yellow ball. If everyone else in the stands is wearing a mask, like I can't compete now.
Sweat particles fly pretty far, though, and the sweat particles are highly, highly, highly viral.
I mean, it's ridiculous, right? Here is the MP, Scott Morrison's the MP, says, Mr. Djokovic visa has been canceled. Rules are rules, he says, in Australia, especially when it comes to our borders. No one is above these rules. Our strong border policies have been critical to Australia having one of the lowest death rates in the world from COVID. We are continuing to be vigilant. Okay, so why did you approve a medical exemption then? So he flies there to defend his title after a medical exemption. He was approved, and now he's being held against his will, basically in a detention facility while they figure out what they're going to do with it while they fight this legal battle right now. Yeah, by the way, Australia, the country that if you're not vaccinated, will round you up and put you in these camps as well, to make sure that you're being watched like a hawk in Australia. Australia also the place where we've had friends who they had a child about two and a half years ago, and were not able to see their parents. Their parents from the United States wanted to fly, so the grandparents weren't able to even meet their new grandchild. Like 2.5 years in Australia. I just think it's unbelievable. Basically the Australian government, the way that you're treating one of the country's biggest stars. So Serbia is not happy about this. And it's really one of the, I think, a continuing problem. You have someone who's at the peak physical condition is Djokovic, right? Arguably, he's the number one tennis player in the world. Do you get in better shape, physical shape, than being the number one tennis player in the world?
Probably not much better.
And so he does not want to hurt his physical performance by having a foreign substance injected into him. At the same time, he has a medical exemption because he has concerns over inflammation and other things in his body. Again, he has had a bad reaction to certain gluten and other things like that. So he's gone on celiac and other things he's got taken out of his diet over the years, so he doesn't have those types of reactions. Does he want something in his body that's going to inflame his body? What then counts as a medical exemption? And why does Australia get to pick and choose what they deem is medically sufficient? Like, I know your doctor said it's a medical exemption, but we're just going to ignore that. We don't care what you think. We're going to be political about this, and they're using him as a political football. I mean, they're using him they're trying to make an example of him. Is what they're doing. No other reason.
Yeah, just like they did the NBA players, just like they did what's that other guy that's now making his rounds on podcasts? I think he's a baseball player.
Was it
very, very popular guy? I can't remember if he's basketball or baseball.
You're not talking about Aaron Rodgers?
Yes, Aaron Rodgers.
Oh,
yes.
Football. Close.
Okay. Yeah, close.
Green Bay Packers quarterback.
There was a ball in there somewhere, I knew.
Right. Yeah. Anyway, and you could be critical of Djokovic and say, look, he's had some non-traditional views of science. He said that prayer and that prayer and belief could actually purify toxic water. Some people would say that's kind of crazy. Okay, that's what he believes. That's what he said in the past. He said on multiple occasions that he's in opposition to vaccine mandates, saying that a vaccination is a private and personal decision. And he didn't,
it's no worse than the 6 feet thing. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's based in nothing. The masks, scientifically have been proven not to really help. And where did the 6 feet come from? It's all arbitrary. It's all theater. And so, that's basically the same thing they're saying. So at the end of the day, just like Joe Rogan says, if you're healthy, you really shouldn't need to worry about all of this. Even if you're not, like, I don't consider myself very healthy, and it came and went, and it was rough for a day or two, but it came and went. I was totally fine, and I'm a little bit overweight, and I think that it's affected people, like overweight people the worst, with comorbidities, and elderly people. Like the majority of people that have passed away from this were 80 plus years old. The majority of people. So
I just want to know, like, what falls under a medical exemption, because according to, again, I come back to the facts on this, there were a handful granted medical exemptions for this tournament. And they're not telling us, according to the reports, they're not telling us like why they chose certain people were exempt and others weren't. Australian health officials said late last year that a recent infection would not necessarily be enough to gain entry. So even if you had COVID and you had natural immunity, they still would want you to get a vaccine to come into the country.
Well, and there's Peter McCullough says that's actually dangerous, getting it after you've had COVID.
Yeah, I worried about my father-in-law. He had just gotten COVID, and then he just got a booster. Like, what are you doing, man? I don't get it. Like, what are you doing? You just had COVID.
But
now
that's
you're
the thing. That the media and the government have us all so scared that that's what we have to do. And you have the media now with this story of super immunity. If you've already had COVID, you better still get your vaccine, because that's the way you get super immunity. And they're showing like a Superman with a cape and all this other stuff. It's propaganda. It goes against what all of the experts are saying.
Well, again, I come back to so China and Australia have been going towards this zero COVID policy, right? And if you don't want to get vaccinated in Australia, we'll throw you in a camp. And you can say, I've called them concentration camps or internment camps, not concentration camps, but internment camps. And that's what they are. You're being held against your will in a camp. It's not my home. It's, you're taking my personal freedoms away, because I don't want to get vaccinated in Australia. So you're putting me in in an internment camp. They're going for zero COVID. Well, now they have 30,000 cases a day in Australia. So how are you going to get to zero COVID? It's not going to happen. It's an impossibility, just like China. So do you want to get to China, where they send their kids to school now in hazmat suits? Like, this is what China is now. Like, that's the future? Like, to get to zero COVID? Like, that's what you want to do? Okay. It's not going to happen. But Australia and China are on the same path on this zero COVID idea, and it's just it's not gonna happen. It's not gonna happen.
Sam says if they fed me and did my laundry, I'd go to a COVID camp.
Fed me and that's called prison.
Yeah, just commit a
That's
crime.
prison.
You're good. Yeah, commit a crime. They'll throw you in a place they do that for you.
Yeah, you'll have all your stuff taken care of then.